So President Obama will likely not be reelected in 2012. That is the headline in the Wall Street Journal piece today from Karl Rove. He cites 4 factors that could drag down the president. A weak economy, number 1. Rove also argues several key voter groups are not happy with the president, people who backed him 2 years ago. Also, the president has backed some unpopular policies that are not loved by the majority of American people, and some of his strategic decisions that have been made. All that to be explained right now. Karl Rove is President George Bush's senior advisor and deputy chief of staff, and also a Fox News contributor. How you doing, Karl? Good morning to you.
How about you, Bill?
Let's start with the elephant in the room. Make your case on the economy. Is it that obvious?
Well, yeah, it is. Unemployment at 9.1%. President Obama sold us on the stimulus bill by saying that unemployment would top out at 8% by the end of the summer of 2009 and be about 6.8% today. That's not come to pass. And the president's treated this in a jocular fashion. I think he did himself a lot of harm recently when he issued the line that I guess we didn't have as many shovel-ready jobs as shovel-ready, and laughed about it. So no president's been reelected since 1936 with 7.2% or more unemployment. The Federal Reserve and the blue chip forecast both suggest that unemployment is going to be about 8% next year. The only guy who survived 7.2% unemployment was Ronald Reagan, and he had the economy going and growing in 83 and 84 at rates far above what are projected for this coming year.
What was the unemployment rate in 84? Do you know when Reagan swept?
Well, 7.2%.
It was 7.2. Okay.
But the economic growth was far more robust. We're likely to have economic growth less than 3% this year and slightly better than 3% next year. But we're going to have, as a result, unemployment stuck high. And remember, it's not only unemployment, nearly 14 million people out of work, but almost half of those people have been out of work for 6 months or more. That's worse than at the height of the Great Depression.
Okay, now I think this is such a telling number. Bloomberg came out with a survey a few days ago. Are you better off or worse off in the beginning of 2009? You know, that's that old tried and true question, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago, from Ronald Reagan? Well, now you're asking yourself, are you better off now than you were 2 years ago? And 44% say they're worse off. Okay, that shapes the economy. What are the issues with his base, Karl?
Well, it's not just his base. You do have problems, for example, with Jewish voters, and you do have problems. We saw the anger of the left-wing bloggers at Netroots. But I took in my survey, in my article, and looked at the decline in the approval rating from 67% at the time of the president's inauguration to 45% this week, and looked at the groups whose decline was bigger than the average, and it's like independents and whites. It's interestingly enough, younger voters, 22-point drop, senior voters who were not good to start with. So my point was there are a whole series of groups, white Southerners, middle-class voters, Westerners, all of whom have moved away from this president in a pretty dramatic fashion over the last 2.5 years.
Is that because of the economy, or is that the dominant factor?
Well, the economy is a dominant factor, but the third point I make is that one of the reasons why they've moved away is because they like the president in some respects personally, but they dislike his policies. They're down on him on the economy, 37% approval. Another poll had a 27% approval on the deficit. And the Affordable Care Act, President Obama's health care bill, is less popular today than when it passed, and it was unpopular at the time that it was passed. And all that's created a toxic stew for the president among these key voter groups. So bad policies is the third reason that he's got real problems.
You're right. He's now at the mercy of policies and events that he has set in motion. That's number 3. Number 4 is this. You believe he's making a strategy blunder.
Yeah.
By running for re-election now in the White House, as opposed to acting like a president? Is that the case you make?
Yeah, look, we understand that the president's got to raise money and get a campaign to organize, but the president could have made a decision and said, you know what, I've got until next March or April during which I can be president, and the Republicans will be out there choosing their nominee, and then next March or April I can turn and become a candidate. And instead the president said, I'm going to become a candidate now. He's spending way too much time on the campaign trail. Today he's going to New York for a series of fundraisers. I think he's had nearly 40-some-odd fundraisers thus far this year. And he's, more important than that, adopted a tone of the campaigner-in-chief, calling out his Republican opponents, denigrating their proposals, demagoguing them, just basically taking this great strength that he has as the incumbent president of the United States and discarding it and becoming just another political candidate, another Paul.
You know as well as anybody that 18 or 19 months, whatever it is, I mean, that is like That's like glacier years in politics.
Well, that's what I put in my piece.
He has the time.
Yeah, but look, here, two things. One is, yes, that's right. He does have the time, and I'm going to write in a future article what he could do to, or what could happen that could put him back in the game. But the problem is well, you're going to have to wait for my next Wall Street Journal column on that. But sometimes things don't change. The economy is not likely to change. His policies of spending and deficits and debt and health care, the attitudes about them are not going to change. If anything, they're going to get worse. They certainly have gotten worse on health care. The concerns of these groups, which are driven by the economy and driven by his policies, are going to be difficult to rejigger. So sometimes things stay the way that they are in politics, and that may be the problem for President Obama.
If it is option A, it certainly will be a problem. If it goes to option B, though, he stands a very good chance of being reelected, as you point out. Karl, thank you. Karl Rove, we'll look for your next piece next week, okay? We'll speak again.
You bet.
All right.